Chuck Schumer's on stage with like a bunch of really far-right, crazy Israel politicians like Bezalel Smotrich, who, along with Ben Gvir, is like the fucking worst of the worst in Israel right now. These guys are why fucking Smotrich and Ben Gvir are why everybody hates Israel. Period. Like, full stop. Them and the parties they represent, the ideology that they represent, are why the United States has turned as a country against Israel. And fucking Chuck Schumer is on stage with them. God damn it, Schumer! Don't you see what this does to support for the Democrats?
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Before You Speak podcast. I am your host, Derek Peterson, just processing the fire hose of my news feed with this guy over here.
What's up, everybody? I am Elwin, and fire hose of my news feed is filled with plea deals that are better than the one Penn Caxton, let's just call him that from now on. Penn Caxton signed off on.
That was my that's my news bite for the day, because this needs to be talked about all over Texas. I mean, the corruption of Ken Paxton has been well noted for a long time, but this is what's blowing my mind about what's going on with the Republican Party at the moment, is that I genuinely am struggling now with like, they're from like leadership down there. It feels like there's an obsession with pedophilia. Like, it feels like that this is like something that is actually kind of maybe even accepted in this group of people, because this is ridiculous. I don't understand this at all. How you can logically go through the process and be like, yes, like giving this guy a plea deal is a good thing. So attorneys from Ken Paxton's office struck a plea deal with Adam Hoffman, who was initially facing life in prison for charges of sexually abusing a child multiple times. The agreement that he came to with Ken Paxton's office was to reduce the charges from 2 misdemeanors, bypass the sex offender registry requirements, and no jail time, which
1 day.
Or 1 day. And the most fucked up part about all of this, and the part that infuriates me, is that people that commit these acts are typically repeat offenders. Like, this is an obsession. Like, if this is something that you do, this is something that you typically obsess about. And these guys get out and then they do it again, and they do it to somebody else. Grooming is not something that you just let go of, and these people should be in prison for the rest of their life. So Ken Paxton put a child predator who will likely do this again to somebody else at some point. And it feels like the Republican Party has just been like, we're cool with it.
Yeah, whenever somebody makes a statement like that, like, oh, this must be party-wide or system-wide, I'm always like, I don't know if I'll go that far. But there's just an awful lot of it going on the Republican side, and I'm
all the J6ers, all the Trump administration that was
something
all
like
seen with
40 J6ers have been rearrested, almost all of them on some sort of sex crime. You have the pastors, all these pastors, they're not blue liberal Democrats. I think there's actually a website where you can track like the allegations of sex crimes and inappropriate sexual conduct for Republican and Democrat Congress people, and it's like hundreds of entries on the Republican side. It is really bonkers. I mean, this was the judge was like, in this case, was like, I don't understand how the prosecution is coming to this deal. I'm going to give you 60 days, which is the most I can do because it's 2 misdemeanors. I can't do anything more. Even the judge was like, guys, what the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah.
And
he
the other
pleaded
side,
guilty.
Right. Well, presumably that was part of the deal.
That was part.
Right?
Well, okay.
Right. You say, hey, we're going to you plead guilty in exchange. We'll give you these 2 misdemeanors and 1 day in jail, which is worse than like no tip. But that's like you're going to leave a penny as a tip. You have you care enough to show your complete lack of
Yes.
morality, your total disdain for everybody involved in the world by leaving one penny or saying, all right, fine, you gotta think this fucking guy should go to jail. Look, how about a day? You know,
Yeah.
leave your car running so the car doesn't get too hot and the AC is on when you get back. Uh,
Yeah, if
yeah.
Tallarico can't win against this, the systemic issues are run deeper than I had ever imagined. So,
Also, like
I mean,
the Tallarico, he's out there with policy prescriptions. He's out there trying to, whether you agree with him or not, it honestly doesn't matter. He is speaking about things that he could do if he were to be elected a senator. Right now, you can,
yeah,
to the extent we have any right-leaning listeners, you can sit there and say that I don't like anything that he's talking about. I think it's all bullshit. It's the rich versus the poor and all that. Like, I think that's all crap. I don't read the Bible the same way he does. You can disagree with every single thing he says. At least he is taking the potential of being a U.S. senator seriously for what it is, which is a top legislative individual, one of 100 in the country and only 100 in the country. Paxton's response to this and his initial entry into the campaign is to call him Talafrico, to call him a drag queen, or like he called him transgender. He said James Talarico is transgender. What, he's a vegan. What the fuck are we talking about? Right? Like, this is who the Republicans are running. There is zero policy or governance coming from the Penn Caxton complaint. I'm going to keep calling him that because I like the word Caxton. It sounds terrible. Uh, there's zero seriousness. It's just culture war, red meat terms and crap. And yeah, if Talarico can't win this, then we can't talk about Texas turning blue for 50 years because
yeah. Then
we're not. It's not a policy debate anymore.
yeah, and to be honest, I like what Tallarico said about this because I genuinely don't want just like liberal policies everywhere. I don't think that that's healthy for the country. I genuinely believe in the tug of war of Republican and Democratic values in a lot of situations. Um so like eh, having both represented in the state is actually I believe a healthy thing. I think that actually represents the people, the constituents, right? Like you have a lot of Republicans, you have a lot of Democrats. The most healthy thing is a pairing of both and actual work on a bipartisan level with in most situations. The problem is that our government just feels like it's way too far gone for it. And it makes me sad that I will we ever see it again in our life? Will we ever see a situation where Democrats and Republicans actually stop giving a shit about just Democrats and just Republicans and start working together for the betterment of people? Like things like universal health care, things like, not going to war, balancing the budget, reining in spending, like all of this stuff could be done. The problem is that the party that's not in power doesn't want the party in power to ever get credit for anything because then they look like they did a good job and it's a threat to the other party. So then it just doesn't work. And it's a shitty place that we've driven ourselves into at the moment. But um,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if
speaking
the
of shitty,
Senate. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, well, speaking of shitty, we need to talk about Tom Kane too.
He's not talking about himself. Like Thomas Kane Jr. He is a Republican Congress critter from New Jersey. Kind of a real blue blood political family from New Jersey. His father was governor for a long time, and actually quite a popular Republican governor, like by a lot of bipartisan support for Tom Kane Sr. But Tom Kane Jr. Is gone. He's disappeared. Like, no one knows where he is. He hasn't been seen in like 4 months. He's missed every vote. He hasn't been seen in the House. He's not campaigning. He is running for reelection. He's not campaigning. His campaign staff is flying to like Oregon and California with expense vouchers that he signed. He is alive. He appears to not be dead. He does exist. He's still trading stocks. He signed an SEC disclosure form indicating some stock trades in the first quarter of this year. But he is nowhere nowhere to be found for 4 months, and Trump today just endorsed him, which is like, we're talking about Ken Caxton and his moral rot and his failure to have any sort of values or political prescriptions whatsoever. The other option that the Republicans appear to be giving us is no one. Don't vote for the Democrat. Vote for no one. Vote for a circle with a name next to it that appears to have no human body attached to it anymore. Uh, it's kind of wild. Like, and it's happened before, but for a couple weeks. Mark Sanford, when he was governor of South Carolina, he kind of disappeared for a couple weeks, and then they found him like he was like hiking the Appalachian Trail with a mistress or something
Yeah.
crazy. But like Tom Kaine, New Jersey, just gone. And this is a winnable seat for the Democrats. It is one that they can flip. It's targeted, by all their national committees as a flippable seat. Trump, I don't know why Trump would have gotten involved in it at all. I don't think there's a primary challenge to the ghost of Tom Kaine, but yeah, I just think people should start
If
to know,
Trump,
like, oh, hey, there's a guy out there, there's a congressman out there who is just gone.
yeah, there. If Trump got involved, that probably means this dude has some crypto venture or something. Maybe he's in the Middle East working on something that's very corrupt and probably very beneficial to the president, because that's pretty much the only way Trump pays attention to anything, is that if it actually benefits him in some way, shape, or form, which is disgusting. But so today's episode, we're going to jump into this really quickly because I have no idea how long this conversation can go. There's a lot of different rabbit holes we can go down here, because our overall conversation is, how can Democrats fuck up a November blue wave, which could be a myriad of different ways. And there's also a lot of very important races coming up, like Iowa, Maine, Texas. There's actually some seats that can flip, that would be very beneficial, I think, to our country in general at the moment. And so I think I'd like to start here because we can kind of connect some of this stuff through. So, like, in general news, one of the things that we've talked about before is just the general fight of Democrats, and their ability to actually stand up to Republicans in a way that, and fight fire with fire. And so I wanted to read this. On Monday, former Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters was released from La Vista Correctional Facility in Colorado. Governor Jared Polis, Democrat, commuted her sentence, according to the Colorado Department of Corrections. Convicted in 2024 for allowing unauthorized access to voting systems, Peters served 1 year and 8 months of a 9-year sentence before Polis reduced it, citing an appeals court ruling on sentencing length. So, after seeing how the DOJ has weaponized and how it's being used against Democrats and anybody that's come across Trump's radar, what are your thoughts on this story?
I mean, this is just brain dead politics by Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado. Absolutely brain dead. The context of it is that her sentence was, the Court of Appeals in Colorado said that her sentence was too harsh given some stuff that happened in the trial, and they sent it back to the lower court for her to be resentenced. All right, fine. Democratic governor of Colorado, get out there and say, I the court's wrong. Whatever the court decides on this, I'll abide by. But I believe this court ruling is wrong. I'm very disappointed. Blah 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 blah. This woman is an election denier. She improperly gave out voting information to prove something that never happened. She is like front and center of the 2020 election denial scam. She's one of these people that is just the worst of the worst because they can't simply accept the results of the election. And she actually broke some laws, and she actually got tried, and she actually got found guilty. And there's no political upside for Polis to do this. This is like Gerald Ford, and Nixon saying it's time for our long national nightmare to end. No, fuck you. No. Tina Peters is an odious piece of shit who wants to steal the election. If the court reduces her sentence, let the court reduce her sentence. But the Democratic base knows who she is. This case was national news. What the fuck do you gain by appeasing this and basically putting your stamp of approval on the fact that she was going to be in jail for too long? You should be taking the position, at the very least, as a Democratic politician, that she deserves every day the jury got her. And if she's going to get less than that because she gets resentenced, she deserves every day that she's resentenced to. But don't commute the sentence. Don't give some like bipartisan sheen of approval to what this woman did by saying that she was wrongly treated. Stand your fucking ground and fight the fight always on every hill. There is no bipartisanship to be had. And I'm not saying that because I don't wish there was. Of course, I wish there was. I'm saying that because I know that the other side doesn't believe in that concept at all. And Tina Peters was like barely out of jail before she was screaming for retribution against everybody. She wasn't like, I want to thank Jared Polis. We can all come together and heal and move together and blah, blah, blah. I was so treated so poorly. Nope. She was like, fuck you, everybody. That election was stolen. All the same shit right away. What on earth? It's been 10 years of Trump. How on earth does any Democratic politician make the mistake of thinking that there's any way to appease anybody who's like full on MAGA? There isn't. There
Yep.
isn't. And the Democratic base is just sitting there. I'm obviously apoplectic about this because it's just so fucking stupid. Fight for the Democrats. You are a Democrat. If you're not seeing it, you're not paying attention to what's going on in the world.
Yeah, it's just another situation where we see uh Democrats not reading the room, not understanding the situation that we're currently in. And I'm not saying this is the situation that we've ever been in. And to be honest, there is a world where I tend to agree with this. Like there's a world where I'm like, yeah, like in a bipartisan world, like where something might feel like a sentence might feel like it was politically charged and maybe overdone considering the circumstances. I'm all about revisiting that normally. But in with what's going on and how our president has weaponized the DOJ very clearly for his own to attack his own political enemies, like yeah, like this is not the moment to for an olive branch, and there are moments for like that, but there has to be an opportunity to find middle ground on those situations. So then here's I want to read this as well. So talk about the Delaney Hall situation, because this is another situation where I feel like Democrats might be missing the mark a little bit. So chaotic scenes intensified Thursday outside of Delaney Hall as more than 100 protesters blocked roads and clashed with federal agents and state police in attempting to enter the privately operated facility. Activists believe there's roughly like 900 to 1,000 people being held there. Earlier this week, New Jersey Democrat Mikey Sherrill and several other members of Congress tried to enter the facility following reports of a hunger strike, but most of them were denied at that time. But for me, and then following this, I saw some videos where Mikey Sherrill had said, masked men protesters were tearing down barricades and attacking, unguarded police officers. And then a lot of the videos started to come out where, oh, it's actually police in riot gear that are walking forward with shields, knocking down these barriers. And so like I'm just like, what in God's name are we talking about here? Like, and maybe the video I watched was not correct. I'm try to give the benefit of the doubt. This is why we process the fire hose of our news feed together, is that some of the shit we see isn't accurate, or maybe it wasn't timed right, or maybe it was at a different location and somebody's trying to use it as evidence to prove something that's not true. But based on everything I've seen thus far and read, yeah, she was full of shit. So, like, what's your take on this?
You know, we're talking about how Democrats can fuck up a blue wave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jared Polis, Mikey Sherrill, the way that Democrats can fuck up a blue wave is to not recognize the anger amongst your Democratic base and not recognize the inherent futility of trying to handle situations that involve ICE or in Colorado MAGA with in a manner that you feel like is just impartial or as anything other than pure politics. So what's happening in Delaney Hall is really not unlike kind of what happened in Minneapolis, a little bit smaller scale. The conditions in Delaney Hall are apparently like awful. There's like maggots in the food and shit like that, like really bad. And we could dig into like maybe we should do for-profit prisons as a topic. It's a for-profit company that's running that prison. Trump donors, all these people, obviously corruption throughout the whole nine. Uh, but Mikey Sherrill, man, like it's not even ICE that's attacking the protesters. It's the New Jersey State Police that are pushing them into traffic, pushing them into like in between the wheels of a moving truck. And the truck was going like 1 mile an hour. Let's be fair, but it doesn't matter, right? And to somehow, to the point that you're making about her statement, to somehow think that every single second of this shit isn't videotaped. Sorry,
Yeah.
where and when do you think you live that every single protester isn't videotaping everything? The New Jersey Senator Andy Kim got pepper sprayed trying, like, it's an incredible picture of him getting pepper sprayed standing in front of a truck full of ICE uh, goons,
Yeah.
in their masks and bulletproof vests. So JB Pritzker did it right in Illinois. Tim Walz did it pretty well in Minnesota, where they recognized one, what's going on in the ICE detention center, what's going on with ICE is fundamentally wrong. We have a moral high ground that we can occupy here. And two, politically, to support ICE in their endeavors here is just wrong. It's just wrong. So me as a Democrat, I'm looking at this and I was like, I remember I talked about Mikey Sherrill winning and on affordability and how psyched I was that she was going to like cap energy costs, energy price increases as a first day in office. And what a great win it was in November, considering the swing from Harris, who barely won, to Mikey Sherrill was like a 15-point swing, right? This is the type of shit that will turn Democrats off, because
Yep.
the worst thing that you can be as a Democrat right now is someone who your voters and who your base feel is just same old, running the same playbook over and over again. We all see that playbook is flawed and broken. So when she does this, that's exactly what she's showing me, the wrong playbook, right? And when Jared Polis does this, it shows me that he's looking at a playbook from a different sport altogether, right? He's reading like 7-on-7 football. They're in the NFL.
Yep.
So this is that type of just sort of centrist Dem who got elected, failing to recognize the value of the fight. How much on the left, people like me want the fight. We want to see the fight,
Yeah.
right? And
Agreed.
yeah,
Well, and so that brings me to the next topic I wanted to bring up with you a little bit, which is uh I know you have mixed well, maybe not mixed. I think now you're pretty much out on Graham Plattner, but I wanted to bring up the Graham Plattner scandal here as well, because so Graham Plattner apparently sexted with one or two different women, which he disclosed to his campaign prior to, I think, starting to run. And then one of the people working on his campaign left and reported this to the Washington Post and New York Times. And, Graham Plattner got defensive and attacked the media and did the thing that, I'm just like, why in the fuck would you do that? Like, why are you fighting that when the reporting is actually accurate? The New York Times reporting is not bullshit, which, so all of it's been confirmed as truth. And we've already accepted a lot about Graham Plattner, which has been hard to accept, right? The tattoo, the tweet, there's stuff about the guy that we're like, yeah, he's rough around the edges. But what made that work, the reason I bought into the Graham Plattner stuff early was that he didn't do that. He wasn't excusing it away. He owned it. So his initial take on the Nazi emblem, the tattoo that he had on him was, like, yeah, I made some dumbass decisions in my life and I've grown from them and I've moved on. Um, and for some reason, this was different. And again, another way to for a Democrat to erode their potential, you know, their potential ability to govern and actually show up in a meaningful way for people, and not just be like what everybody else is right now, which is deflect, deflect, deflect.
See, I think I'm zagging on this for you. I don't really care about
Yeah.
the sexting thing, like
Oh, I don't care
it,
about it, but I'm mad.
but like,
I less care about the scandal. I care about that he didn't just own it.
oh, I think he and his wife kind of did, right? His wife got up and she, I believe with his knowledge, like it's a little shitty how this came out, and this is where my zag is probably going to be. Like she, before they ran, or before certainly their campaign had any head of steam, she disclosed this stuff to they do opposition research on themselves. So she told the opposition research company, like, hey, we got these things. I don't know if they're going to come out, whatever, but you've got them. Now you have them. And he would have known that she did that. And they got married in 2023, right? So this is a young
Yeah.
marriage. Certainly she married him knowing all the stuff that had happened in the past and knowing his past in theater in Iraq. And the guy now, so then the person, the aide that used to work for them, who quit and was disgruntled or whatever, like he's the one who released it to the media. Like that's pretty shitty. Why is this guy who works for a Democratic campaign, right, releasing stuff about that candidate who has a real shot to win to the media? Like that's pretty dark. And that's the shitty thing, right? Like Democrats, like if I'm gonna, I don't know anything about this person, but if I'm gonna map what I would suspect onto them, what I would suspect is they're more of an old school kind of centrist Dem. Maybe they kind of like Janet Mills, and that's maybe why they left before she dropped out, and they're kind of butthurt about all that. Then this becomes the old guard Democrats simply not recognizing what a new compelling candidate looks like. They didn't recruit Graham Plattner. The Democratic Party did not recruit Graham Plattner. It was, a couple guys from the AFL-CIO who came to his house and was like, hey, we've seen you talk at some meetings, and we think you should run. And Maine is a small state. You can do that still in Maine. Uh, and the Democrats have fought him every step of the way. That tattoo stuff, the old Reddit threads from him, that shit came out when Janet Mills entered the race. That shit came out from the Democrats, right?
Yep.
That's the Democrats eating their young. And Graham Plattner, like, look, I think I don't, there's a lot of shit about him that I don't like, but he knows how to fight. He knows when he speaks of the theory of power, when he speaks about what the Democrats do when they have power, and more specifically, what they have failed to do, how they failed to leverage power for the gain of their policies and their voters and what they think is right. That shit is spot on, right? That's what Mikey Sherrill and Jared Polis are not doing, right? He understands that very well. When you have power, you need to use it to pull the levers of government for you and your policies, not corruption. But like, if you need to pull a lever of power, Nancy Pelosi, for as much as everybody hates her, she understood this very, very well,
Yep.
right? If you need to pull the levers of power to get your Supreme Court justice confirmed, you need to pull the levers of power to get your budgets passed. You need to pull the levers of power to exercise your agenda. And the Democrats fucking suck at that. Like Chuck
Yeah.
Schumer sucks at that. They're awful at it. And it's why Democratic voters hate them all. Because every time they get into power, they're like, oh, I don't want to make the other side mad. Institutional integrity and filibusters. Fuck you. Fuck
Yeah.
you. The other side doesn't care about that at all. You have power, use it, because in 2 years, you're probably going to lose it. So Graham Plattner understands that. And that's why he's popular. That's why he beat the tar out of Janet Mills. And for the Democrats who are like sneaking this shit off to the press, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't you get it? Fall in behind the guy. Shut the fuck up and fall in behind the guy and let him beat Susan Collins. And then talk to him in the Senate about whatever it is you want to talk to him about, but listen to him at the same time. But don't try to kneecap his campaign with this crap.
I feel like that has to be some special interest group, right? Somebody that came in and gave that aid, or somebody some money enough to like try to bring this out. I like, for me, a lot of it doesn't make sense, and unfortunately, we live in a world where people are paid to do some awful shit. So like, whatever. That's the but like, this whole conversation gets me fired up because in general, can you imagine if somebody actually used these levers of power to lever things for the benefit of our country rather than for their own fucking personal gain? Can you imagine if we had a fighter in office that was like, no, I'm going to write every executive order, I'm going to do all of this in benefit to the people of the United States. We are going to actually push some shit through that helps the working class and the middle class, and not just all these rich people that are funneling a shit ton of money to my campaign to make it so that their businesses thrive and they don't have to pay as much in taxes, or they're not regulated as hard, or they're, whatever the situation that they're in is. But like, yeah, I'm like, God, like, it just, I wish, and the sad part is somebody that would do this, I feel like they would have to run as a regular candidate and get in, and then really fuck some shit up. Then they would
No, I
have to
think
like pull.
I think your point is well taken. I think that we have a guy who's doing it. And it's what makes Zoran Mamdani such a complex character for me as a Jew. But like, take that aside for a second.
Mm.
He ran as a Democrat. He beat old guard, blue blood Democrat Cuomo family. Schumer wouldn't endorse him. The Clintons barely endorsed him. Hakeem Jeffries endorsed him like the night before the election in the most lukewarm manner possible. Uh, but and some of this is to be taken with a grain of salt, right? He's gotten Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, to agree to spend more money so that they can have universal childcare. He has gotten bus only through lanes down 34th Street so that people can get to work faster on buses. And that's something that Trump had fought against. He is opening the supermarkets, which maybe you disagree with, but he's opening 5 over 5 years. It's a policy that's going to get its shot, right? He's using the levers of power to get the agenda that he ran on through. And we can argue about that forever. We can argue about whether or not there should be taxes on Ken Griffin's second home worth $238 million or not. We can argue about whether or not he should take from the pension fund in order to pay for some of these. And we can argue about whether he really erased a $12 billion deficit in 1 year, or is it actually just accounting gimmicks? Let's have that argument though, because at least he's freezing the rent so that people can afford to stay in their apartments. At least and it's worth nothing. At least he secured $1,050 tickets to the World Cup games that are going to be held in New York, so that so that 1,000 normal people can go to one of those games instead of paying thousands of dollars for a ticket. He's using the levers of power to enact his agenda. So, like, to me, when I think about a guy like that, I'm like, man, like, sometimes he just makes me a little uncomfortable with how much he hates Israel, and but he has also increased by like 800% hate crime funding, and he has put in some rules about protesting near synagogues, but he didn't put those rules around day schools, which there are a lot of Jewish day schools. So there's a lot of stuff that's like a little bit mixed about him to me. But the idea that he is using the levers of power that he won in a free and fair election to enact his agenda is what makes him popular. And it's what the Democrats, the old school Democrats, don't see. They just don't get it. And it's what Plattner seems to understand, at least in how he talks about that stuff on the campaign trail.
Yeah. There are some Democrats that seem like they've gotten the memo, and they've actually read it, and they're following through. So I wanted to talk a little bit about El Said in Michigan as well, because like there is, I saw, I've seen him speak a number of times through just clips and videos, and he seems to be an incredibly intelligent, compelling guy, and somebody that looks like they genuinely have a shot to win it. There is, but similarly to you, he's very clear about his position as an anti-Zionist, while also claiming I'm he's not an anti-Semite. And so, like, toe that line for us. What are your thoughts here?
So, this would fall into the how Democrats can lose the blue wave. It's like, I don't know. El Sayed is pretty far to the left for a Senate candidate. Like, he's further to the left than Plattner is, for sure. He's further to the left than Tallarico is, for sure. And can someone who's that far to the left, and this is stupid, but it's true, whose name is Abdul El Sayed, win a general election in the state of Michigan, running from the far left? And I don't know. I don't know. And there's where I think this is another place where Democrats kind of get screwed up is when, because they've lost such control. The old guard, the Chuck Schumer wing of the party, has just lost touch with what's going on the ground to such an incredible extent. They leave the space for, an unvetted Graham Plattner to come in. Now, maybe they would have found Graham Plattner anyway, or maybe they would have found someone just as good. I have no idea. But they don't get caught off guard by his tattoo and his Reddit threads and his sexting, because they know about it, because they've been in touch with what their voters want and with the where the political winds are blowing. El Sayed's kind of the same thing. They have the centrist Dems, again, Schumer, have so misjudged where their party is and now where the country is when it comes to support for Israel, that they leave the space open for a guy who, as a Jew, makes me really nervous. And I'm open to criticisms of hypocrisy because, I speak highly, or I give Mamdani a little bit of room on this. And I'm going to give Syed less, but that's in part because I think there's a difference between being mayor of a city and being a senator,
Mm-hmm.
and in what levers of power are available to you and how you exercise them and the direct effects you can have on people's lives in those two roles. But, by sleeping on this, by failing to recognize where their party is, the Democrats have created this opening from the far left, from the really, virulently anti-Zionist wing, which does not, I think, truly understand how close anti-Zionism comes in its very nature, in its very definition, to being anti-Semitic, right? So now you start to open the door to this stuff that makes a lot of Jewish people, yeah, quite nervous. And I feel like the Democrats could have, there was a space for them to very quickly, and I don't know if I would have agreed with them in like November of 2023 after October 7th. I probably wouldn't have, to be fair. But there was a space for them to very quickly say, we no longer support a blank check to Israel for offensive weapons. Israel gets special treatment. They get like most favored nation status, or whatever it's called, for arms sales. We sell arms all around the world, but Israel gets different terms than basically everybody else. The Democrats could have said, you know what? We really hate what's going on in Gaza. We think that when they said we're not allowing any food in anymore, at that point, this was immoral, and we no longer support offensive weapons to Gaza. And we can maybe there's a debate on the Democratic side about the interceptor missiles that Israel needs for the Iron Dome. Iron Dome is Israel's property. It's their thing, right? So we can't say we're not going to supply them with the Iron Dome. But maybe we say, you know what, we are going to give them the right to defend themselves with these interceptor missiles, and but we're not going to give them the ability to blow up buildings anymore with our weapons. And then the whole left can have a debate. And I heard this debate happen, and it was somewhat interesting, where it's like, well, the defensive missiles give Israel license to be more aggressive offensively because they can't be hurt, and it's unfair. Great debate, interesting policy, hash it out. But the Democrats didn't see it. They just said fund, 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 fund. And now you have like 90% almost of Democratic voters who are anti-Zion, who are against the state of Israel. And you have over 50% of the country for the first time is against the state of Israel. And the Democrats have created the space because on the far right, the people, they don't really hate Israel. They don't care. They hate Jews, and they hate our money going to uh, to foreign aid to any foreign country, including Israel. They think that money should be spent here on whatever awful policies they support.
Yeah.
On the left, though, they start to say, no, we are anti-Zionist. And if you look around the world, anti-Zionist means I don't believe that Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish state. Well, there's a lot of history. There's thousands of years of reasons why Jews around the world feel like, no, 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 we absolutely do need a Jewish state. History has shown us every opportunity that it gets why we need a Jewish state. And we allow other religious theocratic states, and Israel's not a theocratic state. You can quibble with its democracy, but it is not a theocratic state. Uh, so why not this one, far left? Why is this ethno state wrong, but Syria as an ethno state isn't? Why is it wrong to attack Muslims after 9/11, right? And why is it correct after 9/11 to say, no, not all Muslims represent this jihadist component of their ideology? Why is it wrong during COVID to fucking attack Chinese restaurants because of the Wuhan wet market? But it's not wrong, but we don't allow all those things, right? We say don't attack Chinese restaurants and don't attack mosques, but we're sure willing to accept attacking synagogues. We're sure willing to accept, not letting Jewish people into restaurants or into places of business. And what's going on around the world is much worse than what's going on here. It's not as bad in the United States as it is around the world, but in places like Belgium and in Montreal and Toronto, the Jews are leaving because they are scared. Because if you wear a Star of David around your neck there, something bad is going to happen someday, and probably someday soon. And that space where those bad things happen, that's the space between being anti-Zionism and not recognizing how close that is to anti-Semitism. And Democrats have left that door open. And guys like Syed may or may not actually hate Jews. I have no idea. But I bet you a bunch of his supporters do. And they are kicking that door wide open in the space that the Democrats have left. And it's,
Yeah.
what will happen, how this will cost the Democrats the wave. And I'm sorry, I'm going on for a bit. How this will cost them the wave is that everybody will see the hypocrisy. The rest of the country knows if there's Jews that are being kept out of their synagogues or kept out of businesses, independents will recognize, no, I don't fucking support that, right? I don't want that. That's wrong. And that leads to chaos. And people vote against chaos. They vote for civic order. It's why after 2020, it didn't matter that a lot of those riots were actually infiltrated by the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys and all these right wing groups. And that Kyle Rittenhouse was a right wing nutjob shooting people. Didn't matter. People blanched at the lack of law and order, and they want civic order. And if you have purple haired progressives, setting up on college campuses and preventing just normal Jewish people from doing their thing, people are going to vote against the Democrats. And it's going to outweigh all the other shit, because what people want more than anything else is to be able to walk down the street safely.
Yeah.
And if a Jewish person can't do it, they're going to feel like they can't do it. The Democrats better fucking figure that out, because they will lose elections. That beats inflation. That beats the Iran war. That beats Trump's corruption. That feeling that I want to live in a space that is safe will always shoot right to the top of people's bucket list on voting.
Yep. Yeah, and I can't speak to that line because the line of drawing between, somebody being an anti-Zionist and how quickly that can become somebody being an anti-Semite. I can't speak to that part of this, but the videos I have seen of El Sayed said that he's an anti-Zionist, but he's very anti-APAC, which is becoming very big on the progressive side. APAC has shown itself, and to be honest, APAC has done this to themselves with what they've used their money for and who they've supported, and who they continue to support and who they continue to try to oust as well. But the video clips I've seen of El Sayed was like, like I want to walk, hand in hand essentially with my Jewish brothers and sisters, but and the American Jewish family, while also recognizing that he doesn't believe Israel should just be a Jewish state, and he doesn't think APAC should be involved in U.S. politics, which um, you know part of that I
See,
could
I
probably.
I
What's it?
disagree with, so the APAC, like we've talked about this, APAC has the right to exist just like any other lobbying group, right? There are
Oh, sure.
people
Yeah,
who
yeah,
want to pool their money and put it into APAC so that they have more purchasing power in our elections. The thing that Mamdani has said, and I'm going to give this, giving him too much credit what I'm about to do, but I think it's worth it because he has said it over and over again. Is he doesn't say he says, I don't think Israel should exist as a Jewish state. I'm not Zionist, but I don't think any state should exist as an ethno state or as a religiously based state. So at least he has drawn like a top line to explain, and I'm not fully sold on it, but at least he's out there doing it. He also has a record now. Like by now, he has a record that he can start to lean on, where I can start to weigh things. Now, El Sayed is running in Michigan in a primary. Would I vote for him in the primary? No, I wouldn't. I would vote. I'm a little sad that Mallory McMorrow has fallen off so much. I would probably vote for Haley Stevens. Would I vote for El Sayed in the general? I wouldn't vote for Republican because
yeah,
I think we need the Senate. But like the I would want to know, like, okay, do you believe that uh, any of these states should exist as Muslim theocracies? How do you feel
yeah,
about that? Are you consistent in that? And that line that you talked about, and I appreciate that it's hard to understand, but it's like the line between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is so blurry because in the definition of Zionism is Jewish. It is support for a Jewish state, right? So if you're anti-Zionist, you're saying I don't support a Jewish state. And it's like, well, why not? Okay, cool. Tell me why,
yeah,
right? Well, because, I believe in a two-state solution or whatever. It's like, okay, well, do you believe that Jews have the right to represent themselves in a democracy? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's just, man, it's like centimeters before it becomes about being Jewish, not about Benjamin Netanyahu and the policies of this state. And so that's where it gets really complex. And, I've talked about this before. Jewish values align way more with Democratic values than they do Republican values. It's why American Jews vote 2/3 plus for Democrats. I don't think it's too much to ask for old guard Democrats to understand this line a little better. And I'm going to shit on Chuck Schumer and a little bit on Mamdani now. Like there was the Israel Day parade this weekend in New York City, and Mamdani was like the first mayor ever to not go to it. And he said, I'm not going to it. I don't believe, I don't support Israel, blah, 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 blah. Oh, man, I get it. It's consistent with his campaign message. And it would be really weird if he did go, given how he's spoken about Israel. But it's the kind of thing where he's been so vocal about it that I don't love it. But Chuck Schumer's on stage with like a bunch of really far right, crazy Israel politicians like Bezalel Smotrich, who, along with Ben Gvir, is like the fucking worst of the worst in Israel right now. These guys are why every fucking Smotrich and Ben Gvir are why everybody hates Israel. Period. like full stop. Them and the parties they represent, the ideology that they represent, are why the United States has turned as a country against Israel. And fucking Chuck Schumer is on stage with them. God damn it, Schumer! Don't you see what this does to support for the Democrats from Jews? It's like, no, I fucking hate Smotrich. You, Chuck Schumer, have to get away from him. Period. He can. You can. He didn't. Schumer didn't organize the Israel Day parade. It happens every year. Great. Have Smotrich speak an hour before you, and have him get the hell out of New York before you step on that stage. Don't stand next to him and alongside people like him, because the rest of the country sees that. And now you have the Democrat, the head Democrat, the most powerful Democrat in government, standing next to the worst Israeli official, and everybody sees it. And they're like, why the fuck are the Democrats supporting Israel? I'm either not going to vote for them, or I'm going to vote for the fucking worst. I'm going to vote for the guy who hates Israel, and I don't care that he hates Jews, or maybe he doesn't hate Jews. I don't know. Give Syed a chance if he wins. Uh, it's just another way where, man, the Democrats, they don't get it. And they don't get that. So Schumer in the centrist wing doesn't get it. The people on the far left, they don't get it because they don't see how, you know, civil disorder rubs people so dramatically the wrong way. And this is the type of shit that can cost them the Senate,
Yeah.
the House.
Well, dude, and fuck Chuck Schumer. To be
Fuck
honest,
Chuck Schumer.
I'm relatively new to the political sphere. Like, you know, I've dabbled throughout history, but I've never paid that much attention to it because I was always focused on something else. But now that I'm in it, my mind is blown in seeing some of these old guards. I'm like, how in God's name did you get this far? Like, it's just like name recognition, like people aren't paying attention. And granted, like the polarization of our government at the moment has showed a lot of these cracks, and a lot of people's characters should basically showed us who's going to actually fight and who's going to write a strongly worded letter. And so, you know, like I understand that that's a relatively new dynamic, but it's also one that I'm like, yeah, like fight for your constituency, like make this make sense for us, because the values need to align, and people are more in that than ever before. The other part of this, and I wanted to just kind of say in general, is you know, in a culture of clips, the clip culture that people get are most of their education from now, I don't think people understand the relationship of Jews and their connection to Israel as much as you might think they do. And I think that I think a lot of young people particularly saw what happened in Palestine, and knowing little to nothing about the history of these two countries, basically just bought into everything that was going on. And basically, you know, it looked like, you know, somebody started a fight and then somebody eradicated, you know, everybody that person that has ever known, you know, as a
Yeah.
result of it. And, you know, like, and so I don't think that people actually understand the long history of Israel and Palestine and Israel in the Middle East. And to be honest, even the Holocaust and kind of what drove a lot of, you know, Jewish culture in the first place, and to get us to where we're at now. So I will give some people grace on some of that, but at the same time, and I say that because I'm one of them. You know, if I didn't have Jewish friends like yourself, I would be completely oblivious to a lot of the things that we're talking about now. And these are important things. It's important to understand these things well enough to at least, if you're going to have a strong opinion about it, my view is that you need to dig into it a little bit. It's like if you have a friend going through a divorce and they're just shitting on their spouse the whole time, and you're going to take a side, and you're friends with both of them, like you're like, it might be good to get the other side of the story for like just reference on some things to make sure you have context for everything. And I feel like that's kind of like where we're at the moment, is just there's a general hatred for Israel at the moment because, you know, the US bought into a war, and in large part they feel like it's Israel's fault. And so if that's how you feel, I can understand why you'd be mad at Israel. But my suggestion would be like, hey, go a little deeper and actually dig through some of this stuff before you come to a conclusion. And I'm not going to argue with somebody that says Benjamin Netanyahu's not a good person, uh, because I think most of the Jewish people I know would say the same and have
Yeah,
largely disagreed with the handling of everything since October 7th. So
the ask I would make there, if I were to make an ask, it would be, I'm not asking to support Israel, and I'm not asking to support the policies of the state of Israel, and I'm not asking for people to become, like half-baked experts on Middle Eastern politics. And what I'm asking is for ideological consistency. Because the thing that I don't think you need to really have a lot of knowledge about any of this to be and still be able to do is to say, am I holding Jews and the state of Israel to the same standard that I hold other countries? The Chinese are kill all the Uyghurs. The Chinese government is committing a genocide against the Uyghurs. I think pretty much everybody agrees about that and is horrified about that. Well, do you hold Chinese people responsible for the action for that? Like, are you not eating at Chinese restaurants, or when you see Chinese people in the street, are you, shitty towards them or suspect towards them? If you're not, then why are you that way towards Jews, right?
yeah,
If you feel like Russia has, like Putin has committed a grave, you know, innumerable war crimes in attacking Ukraine, but you're not mad at the Russians that but you are mad at the Jews, why? Why?
yeah,
Because that's the double standard that I don't think you need to support the state of Israel to understand, that I don't think you need to understand Zionism to understand. But that's the double standard that jumps out at me, which is that, we've had any number of countries around the world do terrible things to their own people or to their neighbors. You know, it happens all the time. But the only time that, diaspora citizens, in a sense, I'll call the diaspora Jews citizens for just ease of argument here. The only time that the diaspora citizens really seem to be held accountable for the actions of that government is when it comes to Jews. And that shit's not fair. And that shit is why, like, this sort of heavy lean into anti Zionism makes everybody really, really nervous to some extent. And I don't think it takes supporting Netanyahu or, supporting what they've done in Gaza to say, wait a second, am I treating this issue the same way that I treat every other issue? Uh, because I don't think people are.
yeah. I would agree with that. I think that people latch onto something in the moment and make a stand on something that they don't actually, that they're not consistent with. And it just tends to be, the thing that's driving, especially with younger people. Younger people, there's more emotion, and I think in general, feel like you can actually change the world. And then you get to our age and you're like, we're just going to get grumpy and fucking talk about it a bunch because we're mad. So that's how it goes. Speaking of mad, we'll wrap our blue wave conversation there for today because we're running out of time. But who are we telling to shut the fuck up today, Owen?
CrossFit headquarters should shut the fuck up.
Yes.
So
I
probably a
have a
little inside
long-standing hatred for this. Just FYI, I can
probably a
go on for
long
hours about this.
yeah, they've really gone off the rails. So probably a little inside baseball if you're not into CrossFit, but like, CrossFit started as a very, very open source fitness methodology. When you could pay, you could open a gym like I have a couple of times now, and you could pay 3,000, now $4,500 a year, and you get to call yourself a CrossFit gym. You get to use their logo, you get to use their tagline, Forging Elite Fitness, and you're on their map, their website, affiliate map, and that's kind of it. That's what you got, and that's why I'm not affiliated anymore. But what they talk about, like what CrossFit purists talk about, is the methodology, right? This idea of constantly varied movements performed at high intensity and functional training and, AMRAPs and Metcons and all this shit, right? Whatever. What it is exercise movements done with a clock running. That's what it is. That's all it is. Okay. Now, it was very, very effectively named and very, very effectively marketed. And the name CrossFit, most people have probably heard of it. Like, I'd be surprised if somebody's like, I don't know, what the fuck is that? Never heard of it. So they've spent the last 5 years just taking absolute flamethrower to any goodwill that they've had amongst their affiliates and the public. Their original founder said some stupid racist shit in 2020. They did a terrible job at their championship, the CrossFit Games, and a guy died, and they fucking fumbled that as bad as you could fumble it. So they're just taking a flamethrower to the place. And they came out, they have a new CEO, and he came out last week and he said that he wants to go after all de-affiliated gyms, meaning a gym like myself that decided I don't want to pay the affiliation fee anymore. And I had to scrub the word CrossFit from my website, from everything that I do. And they called me on it, like they were watching. They want to go after us, a gym like mine, for using the methodology of CrossFit, right? You can't do that. You can't trademark an idea. You can't say, and this is what somebody in support of this has said, you can't say, well, we didn't invent the squat and we didn't invent the pull-up, but, the idea of snatches and muscle-ups done for time, we did invent that. Fucking no, you didn't. No, you didn't. People have been working out with clocks on for the entirety of human history. And the hypocrisy and the stupidity and the galaxy brain nature of this is just amazing to me. So I'm telling them to shut the fuck up, but I kind of wish they wouldn't, because for them to make this work, they would have to sue people like me. Like, why do I deserve to be sued? I don't. Gold's Gym, who
That's
does
debatable.
CrossFit style workouts, and all these companies that have started selling programming run by their legends, guys like Rich Froning and Matt Frazier, people who everybody in the CrossFit game know and worship. They'd have to sue all those people. Right? They'd have to show impossibly that somehow the methodology is something they could trademark. Oh, and they give their shit away for free every day on their website. They publish a CrossFit workout every day for free on their own website. And now they're out there like, no, you can't use our methodology. You have to pay us for the methodology, because people understand, like, this is what a CrossFit gym is. Like, shut the fuck up and go away with this if you want to salvage any bit of goodwill or any sort of future. Otherwise, keep going, because I got like the big ass 4-gallon movie bag of popcorn to watch this shit go down. I am in for it all. So there you go.
Dude, I love it. And I think maybe we should do an entire episode on CrossFit. That would actually be something I could rail on
That would be fun.
I mean, I will say this: CrossFit was some of the best years of my life, and the reason I'm so mad at CrossFit is because I love it. So it is the most mismanaged business that I have ever seen in my life. And yeah, I would love to talk about that. I could talk about CrossFit I have talked about CrossFit for an hour.
The crazy thing about like them saying they want to sue for the methodology is, like, in effect, they were too successful. The name CrossFit was too good, right? They gave rise to a whole style of gym that didn't really exist, like mine, industrial spaces, rubber floors, rigs for pull-ups, barbells, Olympic lifting. Like, this shit didn't really exist in the mainstream vernacular until CrossFit came around. And the name itself is just so good and strong and punchy and identifiable that people walk in and be like, oh, this is a CrossFit gym, because they see it by looking at it. Well, that's legally a real big problem for them, because if something becomes too familiar, you can't protect it anymore. Like Kleenex or Velcro. These are terms where, like, 3M can't say, no, we own Velcro, because it's too known. Everybody knows Velcro is just that hook and loop thing that fucking shoes have. They don't know it. 3M can't take it back and say this is ours and everybody needs to pay us for it to use it, because it was too successful. And that's kind of what CrossFit's looking at. They're like, fuck, had we done all this 10 years ago, then something, right? Their affiliate agreements, they don't say anything about the methodology, because it wasn't what they were paying attention to. They were paying attention to the trademark, the name, the font, all that. So,
yep. Well, shut the fuck up, CrossFit, and also
come at me, bro.
And also maybe the topic of one of the podcasts in the next 2 weeks. So I think we might. You also mentioned, what else did you mention earlier in this podcast?
For-profit prisons.
Oh, yeah. John Oliver did a good one on Last Week Tonight on those a while ago. But yeah, dude, I think we got a few things we could talk about, because that's definitely one of them now too. So well, we'll call it there. To all of our loyal listeners, thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.